I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Chisholm.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Bergen.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
And public comment, Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce update, Christina Wilchin.
Mayor, do you want to maybe do the pinning ceremony for your assistant chief? of
Sure, I can
police
do
first?
that. You don't want him to sit through the whole thing. Well, Dave Smutchler, I'm going to let you introduce the assistant police chief and do the pinning ceremony. You're welcome.
Very pleased to be here tonight to recognize a promotion in the Decorah Police Department. I want to thank the council and the mayor for allowing us the time to do this ceremony tonight. The promotion that we're recognizing is that of Decorah Police Officer Brent Parker. He's going to become our new assistant police chief. Brent, can you find your way up front? With the recent changes in the police department and my role, it opened up an assistant chief position. We asked for applicants from inside the department to test for the assistant chief position and put them through a rigorous test. At the end of the testing process, Officer Parker was selected as our new assistant police chief. For those that don't know Brent, here's a little bit about him. He has 12 years military service as a member of the United States Army. Thank you for your service. Served in both Afghanistan and Iraq. Member of the West Union Police Department for 8 years. The last year and a half of that tenure was as the police chief of West Union. He joined our police department in 2015, and we've kept him busy. Since he's been a member of our police department, he's been on the special response team, our tactical team. He served as our tactical team leader. He's a firearms instructor. He works for our drug task force. He's the secretary for our drug task force. He's on a federal task force board. And he always stays busy within the city, too. He's on a couple different committees, the Tree Board and the Human Rights Commission. Brent's married to Bridget Parker. They have 2 girls, Brenna and Bristol. Can I get you guys to stand up for just a minute? Don't want to embarrass you, but we always want to take the time to recognize family members. Like I said before, they're very much a part of this career. It's not only taxing and demanding on us, it is for the family as well. Thank you. We asked Brent who he wanted to have pin his new badge on him. When you get promoted in a police department, you get a new badge. On the badge, it has your title. It says Assistant Police Chief Decorah. This means a great deal to us. Brent said that he's going to have his daughter Bristol come up and perform the badge pinning. Not a choice I would have made. But we've got first responders in the room. First one should come up. I feel like I'm an accomplice handing a shift to somebody. Go ahead. You need a chair? You stand up on it? Congratulations. And thank you for taking on these roles and extra responsibilities. And thank you again for the time to get this done today.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quick, I'd
Congratulations.
like to thank the mayor, city council, Chief Smutzler, and the opportunity, obviously the department for their support through this whole process, and obviously my wife and 2 daughters that have endured this profession of mine for a while. So, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Nice to have you. Okay, now if you'd like to stay and listen to that.
Yeah.
Okay,
And there goes the...
okay. Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce update, Christina Walton.
It's a tough act to follow. Handing out some handouts. I think one of them ended up in the Dropbox middle of last week. I apologize for not getting other information to you sooner. So I want to talk about a couple of things, the chamber in general, and all of this stuff going on with this new branding initiative. I think a lot about what goes on in the chamber, and I think change is just our constant. It's a little bit of the nature of the beast for us. It's some of the fun, it's some of the grief too, but a lot of things continue to go on. So on the front page that I gave you, general information about the chamber, and I just outlined things for 2019 that were maybe new or different for us. Very early this year, we did a adjustment in staff where we did away with the director of operations position, which I held for a long time. But we had a difficult time hiring back into that. And so knowing changes that were taking place with tourism and branding and all of this marketing stuff, we promoted Gabriel into that marketing coordinator position and then rehired in the reception. You may or may not be aware, but Gabriel resigned his position with us. He is at Impact Coffee, but I am ecstatic to tell you that Sarissa Snethen's first day in our office was today. So fortunate to have minimal downtime there. Sarissa has a great background in marketing, and so I think she will be a good, huge asset to our team, so I'm really excited about that. Early this year, we also did a digital marketing training series with To Be to Green. Had outstanding response to that. I think we could have filled that 2 times over. So hopefully that's something we can continue into the future. We did a couple of lunch and learns. We used to host regular luncheons and kind of stopped. There are other groups doing luncheons. And just kind of harder to keep good speakers on a constant rotation, so we've opted to just do them when we see a need. So this year, earlier in the year, we did a luncheon with Chad Bird and then also Stephanie Fromm talking about some of the economic development tools we use as a community. I think we had about 50 people there, so that was a pretty good turnout for a luncheon. We also hosted one with NICC to really talk about their non-credit side of the college and things that they do to support the business community as well. Always in tune with some workforce things with different groups, a few things listed there. One of the really exciting things there, I think, is the South Winneshiek School has implemented a professionalism course. So we worked with NICC to implement that curriculum. And we met with them, I think, in November, and they implemented the class in January. So it was a smaller class in that spring semester, but they have continued it. And the role we continue to play in that is providing professionals into the classroom to talk about real-life work experience. We are in our 6th year now of Leadership Decorah, and we have a full group again this year. Really excited about work with Luther College. We've worked the last couple of years on their orientation weekend, and that continues when they do their Destination Decorah program, where new students come down and businesses kind of just welcome them in for that day. And I'm sure you've heard, but there's a lot going on with the inauguration weekend, and we are really doing a lot to help promote and facilitate things with that. So downtown is rolling out the carpet, if you will. Many stores will stay open late that Friday night, and we're working on other things to help just make the downtown feel vibrant. So we've had really great response to that. Of course, the destination stuff, which we'll get a little more into that. One really positive thing from that already, though, is that we've had really great conversations with the 3 organizations I've listed there, Seed Savers, Luther, and Vesterheim. And I am confident more open and ongoing conversation will stay intact with those groups for a couple of reasons: to be more intentional in how we're all recruiting groups and how we're working with them, and to make their experience here a little more well-rounded, rather than knowing what they get from Luther or from Seed Savers, et cetera, and just how might we support a broader effort there. Will probably involve some other groups as well. For example, Seed Savers had a event recently, and every room in town was full because TG was doing a big release, but Seed Savers had professionals coming in from across the country too, and so that was a challenge. So how could we possibly prevent those kinds of conflicts and spread those things out a little bit when and where we can? We're also working on a brand new visitor guide, 52 pages of it's a labor of love when we do these things. We did a quick reprint of the visitor guide. We worked with a newspaper to do a reprint of what they did, and these things are just really challenging to keep on our shelves. So aligning resources to print 30,000 of these in hopes of keeping it on the shelf for 18 to 24 months. And like, no one wants to think about holidays and Christmas, right? But it's kind of entering my nightmares at night of needing to get those out and make sure that they're all operating as they should, and working with the street department to get those up in just probably another month, right? Looking ahead, there are a couple of exciting things happening. So the digital marketing was really well received and popular, and I've had some requests just for some general marketing information for small businesses, and we do have a professional who's recently relocated here who would be willing to do that, so I think we're looking at that for early 2020. Also working with Economic Development and NICC to do a distinctively Winneshiek County program. They do it in Dubuque. It's a program for people who are new to the community, and it will run for 5 or 6 weeks. Meet in a different spot around the county, mostly breweries and wineries. But each session will have an educational element and then some type of project or activity. So I think if you participated in some of the work groups with our branding people, we heard from some people that it can be difficult to get integrated into the community if you're new here. And so this was one way, or one thing that came out of that, to try to engage with those people a little faster. And then looking at how we could do some manufacturing tours, was hopeful to do something this fall with local manufacturers, and just due to staffing changes, they just didn't have the resources to kick that off. But so those are things that are new or different within the chamber for this year. On the back of that front page is some information on the visitor center. There's a lot that goes on in the visitor center, and I really would encourage you to just stop and hang out for a while. I think Randy has been in for other things, has encountered a little bit of what goes on in the visitor center. Ross got to help me out a little bit one day when he stopped in to talk with me. But really, a lot of things go on in there, and it's a fun space to have conversations with people, too. It remains a popular place. We still get a lot of phone calls. Our walk-in traffic is pretty steady. And we still work with a lot of groups. And in this year, as you know, the City Managers Conference, the Adult Dorian Festival, we've had a couple of deaf senior citizen conferences come into town. A lot of our work happens with them ahead of time. But they're a fascinating group. Black Hills Energy had their leadership conference here this fall. We did a lot of work with Seed Savers Exchange and their conference and camp out. And of course, many family reunions, school reunions, things like that. We keep brochures in a lot of area places. We've also hosted quite a few bloggers, and several of them have been in the fall here. Just since July, the Bike Iowa gentleman was here, the Minnesota Trails guy was here, Picnic Life Foodie was here not too long ago, and 2 weeks ago, Iowa Magazine was here to do a 36 Hours in Decorah story. We also, part of the visitor center and compliments of some hotel motel funding too, there are a number of brochures that we are either curating ourselves, like the visitor guide and the city county map, or brochures that we seek grant funding for, or again, fund with hotel motel. So this is kind of a small glimpse into that environment. And this year, 5 publications have had to be redone. So the visitor guide again, the Trout Run Trail map was redone. The off-road map, the off-road trails map is new. Those 2 maps were funded in part by an Iowa Tourism grant. The Winneshiek County Trout Stream guide is nearly gone, and we're working with, I'm probably going to mess this up, but I think we're working with RC&D on that one. The last time that was printed, I think like 2,500 or something crazy was printed. So we're getting 10,000 of them this time, so hopefully they'll last longer. And then we have a canoe or paddler's guide that's gone, and I think we're working with conservation on that. I might have those 2 messed up, but Hotel Motels provided some funding for that, and I'm glad those entities are helping with the reprint of those, just to take some of that work off of our plate. And, you know, just a lot of those tourism pieces, just manning the visitor center is one thing, but then it's also things like the state fair booth, and when these bloggers and people call in or they want to come in and do a story, it's facilitating lodging, and maybe there's specific tours or interviews that we're helping to schedule within that as well. But it's a lot of fun. But it ebbs and flows. Fall is a busy time here too. But questions about any of that before we talk specifically about branding? Awesome.
Okay.
So the next couple of pages, maybe some of you have seen this in different meetings or things that have happened. So you're all aware, toward the end of August, we unveiled this brand. The 10 days following that were pretty adventurous. We received a lot of feedback, from the very positive to the very negative, and it came in all formats as well. So I think we've meandered that, and hopefully we're on the other side of it. So we're also kind of in an awkward space of we've unveiled this brand, new budgets and dollars are not really available till 2020. So we're working with Cubic on a few things that we need to wrap up or clean up for 2019, and then we'll hit things full force again for 2020, which will also mean redoing the Visit Decorah website, which will be a very large task. We will retain Cubic to help us implement and remain true to the brand and make sure we're being authentic to what their intention is, because we've invested a lot to get to this point. But now becomes the challenge of balancing the work and the info we're getting from Cubic with local suppliers. So Cubic is weighing in on this visitor guide, but it is largely being done by Letterworks. So on our end, they got the bid on both the graphic design and the printing. So we'll do a similar thing with the website and involve local people with those processes. The other thing I'm not sure we talked about when the brand was unveiled is this market segmentation study. So we gave Cubic 10 addresses within the county, and they are able to track information on people who have been to that site within the past year. I don't know the logistics of that, but it's geofencing, and you've got a smartphone, we're all being followed and tracked in some way. But that information will really give us data on who's already been here. They take that and create audiences to mirror those people. Because if we've already got a track record with a segment of the population, we should seek more of those people out. I've just seen a bit of the data. The geofence stopped at the end of September. From family size to income to where they came from. I mean, just all kinds of things. It's really fascinating. So that will really inform where we do advertising and marketing in 2020. And so there's just more information on the back of that regarding the market segmentation study. And then just got today, so part of the work to wrap up for 2019 is we all year had ads with Minnesota Trails. So their winter publication, that deadline is coming up. So this is obviously not a final version of this because it says name the location, right? There's a few edits to be made to this, but this would be an example of an ad we would run going forward. And so I think the more we use this type of logo image also means we need to get these kinds of patches in our office because you know they'll come in to buy them, right? So there's a lot of excitement about the brand and people wanting to use it in various ways and others talking about merchandising or how they use logos for ads and all of those things. And the short answer to that at this point is I don't know. We've been cautioned to edge into all of that slowly so we don't ever have to retract from anything. But we will figure out ways to implement some co-op advertising and allow people to come in and work on that brand with us. And a lot of people have inquired on that. So we'll live and learn through some of this, but it's largely been very exciting. So probably already talked too long, but do you have any questions?
Sounds like a busy year.
Always is. It always is.
Thank you. This is a lot of work and great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate your guys' support. Like I said, change is inevitable and it's just part of the process, I think, for all of us. But we navigate that the best we can.
Be interesting to work with you on a style guide, on the style guide for signage
Yeah.
for wayfinding and whatnot, so I'm excited about that.
I have a little bit of that. So the other thing that's happening, and you'll hear from Stephanie, I think, at your next meeting, but the logo that's been developed for the destination brand, both the Chamber and Economic Development are developing logos that will mirror that a little bit. So it will very much look the same. The colors are a little bit different. And no, it's the Chamber holding that process up. We haven't selected our final logo just yet, but as soon as we do, there'll be a lot more coming. But I probably do have some stuff I could give to you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any
Wait.
questions?
So you mean this isn't final, these colorings, or these are colors?
This is final for the destination
Got it,
stuff. What the Chamber will adopt is our logo. Instead of the orange, it's more blue than, you'll see it.
Got it.
Yeah, so all of our logos will fall in line, which I think is exciting because we're working very well together, which is also a tremendous success compared to some
so.
back history on that. So just visually, we'll have that synergy between organizations too.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to make note of two people that are in the room that are actually going to be appointed later. I just want to introduce them at this point because I know Laura Wright, if you want to, she's being appointed to the Human Rights Commission, but I also know she hasn't someplace to go. And then I kindly thought Peter was our college student, so I thought, well, maybe that made him feel younger. But that is Peter Sharp in the back as well. But I wanted to point them out at this point so they wouldn't have to sit through the whole meeting. So thank you. And then we have some special visitors tonight. We've got Jeremy Smith with Troop 66. Maybe you guys want to just stand for a quick minute. We can take a look at you. Very good. It's nice to have you here. The city council will be here shortly after the meeting. We can take a picture, and then your troop can ask them the questions that they need in order to be able to get the badge. And what kind of it's a citizenship badge?
It's a rank advancement for their first class badge.
Okay,
Citizenship.
okay.
You'll be seeing them a little bit more throughout the months to come for some other merit badges for
Good.
citizenship in the community and communication.
Well, that's great. I appreciate your work with them, and it's great having you here. So,
Thank you.
I was extremely pleased when Nori Hadley had asked me to consider doing a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. And I'm going to ask Nori to come up. By doing this, we're celebrating people who first called this land home. We remember the struggles and tragedies they endured, and we honor their place and contributions to share the story of America. And I'll let you give a little more information if you might.
Sure. Thank you for letting me speak, Mayor and Council. This issue is really important to me, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. But I just want to relay a short story that happened to me recently regarding, that's really relevant to this. You probably know, most of you know that I am the activity director at a local assisted living facility. And recently, I asked some of the tenants to play a game with me in honor of Native American Day, which is usually celebrated at the end of September. So first, I asked if any of them had any Native American ancestry, and none of them did. So then I asked them to list all the Native American tribes that they could think of. And I said, just shout them out. And I usually have a whiteboard for games. And they started shouting them out, and we made it to about 15 tribes before they said, yep, I think that's it. And I said, are you sure? And they said, yep, we're sure. There's probably a few we missed, but that's all we can think of. And I said, what about this area? What about Decorah? Do you know what tribe Wakan Decorah belonged to? And they couldn't answer me. They said, maybe I knew that at one time, but I can't remember. They couldn't give me either the name Ho-Chunk or Winnebago. And that really says something. So when Christopher Columbus arrived in the Caribbean, there were probably about 600 different tribes of indigenous people living in North America, with an estimated population of around 50 million people. 600 separate cultural groups made up of 50 million individuals. Think about that. Now think about the fact that a group of non-native assisted living residents could come up with a list of 15 tribes. So, proclaiming Indigenous Peoples Day in Decorah is one small step towards recognizing and celebrating the millions of people whose lives were affected and continue to be affected by European colonization of the Americas, beginning with Christopher Columbus. Thank you for recognizing my efforts regarding this matter. I hope the city of Decorah will continue to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday in October, not just in 2019, but every year. We simply must acknowledge those who were here first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want me to read anything else, Mayor?
You've had a copy of this,
Yeah.
so I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nori. Don't go quite to shed. Thank you very much for bringing this to the forefront.
Thanks.
And I think it's great to get the information out so that we can learn more about the people that we actually have that came here as well.
Thank you. I agree. Thanks.
And I'm more than happy to sign this.
Hooray.
So right now.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Consent agenda.
Your consent agenda consists of minutes of September 16, September 23rd, and October 2nd, 2019 council meetings. Claims, consider special event application for flag display celebrating inauguration of Luther College president, Friday, November 1st through Monday, November 4th, 2019, and partial pay estimate number 1, East Broadway Alley project in the amount of $40,402.74.
Make a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Carlson?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Conduct public hearing on proposed lease agreement with Raleigh Aviation Properties Incorporated for hangar improvement at the airport. Can you give us a little background?
I'll give you a little background during the public hearing portion, Mayor, and then I will also ask that the council table the resolution on this, and I'll kind of walk through this and I'll explain that.
Okay.
So that would be resolution 3008. You have before you a proposed lease for approximately 100 by 120-foot area for a corporate hangar, approximately the same size on the airport grounds. The lease proposes the tenant may engage in FAA Part 135 charter services and is for a term of 50 years, which is the maximum allowable by the FAA. The lease would be renewable upon mutual consent of both parties, the city and the tenant, on terms as may be agreed at the time that lease renewal would be contemplated. The lease rate is at $1,500 per year for years 1 through 5, $3,000 per year, years 16 through 30, and $4,500 a year for years 31 through 45, $6,000 per year for years 46 through 50. The lease proposes Raleigh Aviation will construct the improvements and immediately turn over title of the facility to the city of Decorah and to the Airport Commission. The city would assist with FAA review and clearance approvals. There are provisions in the lease as well for the Airport Commission to work with the leasee on site plan specifications and site layout, amenities, and of course, there would be some FAA requirements that would not be negotiable, that would have to be met criteria. The city may assist with the extension of water from the business park, and that would be in terms of providing some engineering or labor services to run that extension, but the costs of the extension otherwise would be borne by the leasee. Development of the corporate hangar space in the southern part of the area of the airport facility has been contemplated since at least 2012 in the airport layout plan. I did put a copy of that, at least that page of the plan in your packet. There's a little clip in your background notes as well, depicting that area for corporate development to the south, or otherwise accessible by what we call the ocean blacktop. So the reason that I would ask you to table the action items on this is that the Airport Commission still has a couple of things they want to better understand and kind of fine tune in the lease. We also would like an officially signed copy of the lease here before we ask for council approval. We do have a tentative signed agreement, but it's been our practice over the last year or two before we bring items to the council that we have things fully executed and signed on the backside first. So I would ask that you contemplate the public hearing, see if there are any public comments or input. There are some members of the commission here, maybe they have a few things they'd like to say. But that you table action on 3008 until the next council meeting. If there are changes substantially to the lease, we would have to reset the public hearing. We don't anticipate that would be the case, but we do want to make sure everybody's comfortable with the lease, and we'd like to see that signed lease back before we put it in front of you. So.
I had one question. I noticed you've got years 1 to 5, then it goes 16 to 30.
I wondered.
Then
Oh,
where's 6 to
typo.
15?
Yeah.
Oh,
It should be 1 through 15.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, 1 through 15 in that first segment.
okay,
I guess-
that makes better sense.
My question, Chad, is how are these terms decided?
So we did do some market analysis. We looked at, there aren't too many airports with corporate hangar spaces. We did look at Ankeny. We did consult with an airport consulting engineer. And then ultimately, these prices came back to us too from Raleigh. But I would say they're substantially close to market rates.
I'm just wondering, with inflation in 50 years, will that be comparable, or will that be way undervalued, or?
Yeah.
I just a little
But
hesitant to
they're
say.
building the building, not us, so.
Right, but we'll get this depreciated 50-year-old building,
Correct.
so, I don't know.
I will open the public hearing, and if there is anybody who wishes to speak to this, please step to the podium, state your name and address. I see none. Are there any other questions for Chad prior to going on, since we're not going to be doing the resolution? Okay.
So I guess, I'm sorry, I would just ask.
Make a
Andy,
motion.
No, so I'm going to ask you to table 3008.
Sure.
Well, yeah, move
Yeah,
to do that.
gonna move to-
Do you have any suggestions or recommendations on lease rates then, or anything else you want us to look at?
I mean, I was messing around with the inflation calculator last night, but no, I don't have any off the top of my head. I was just wondering maybe what some other practices, but you said you've talked to Ankeny and a couple other places, so I trust that you've done your due diligence. I just didn't know how those terms were,
Right, okay.
how you came to those.
Did you close the meeting?
I'll make a motion, though, to table resolution 3008.
Second.
After I've closed the meeting.
Sorry.
Okay. Second,
Second by Chisel.
okay. Roll call.
Carlson?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Okay, conduct a public hearing considering plans and specs, cost estimates, form of contract, and accepting bids for the 2019 Ridge Road improvements, Phase 1, Lower Ridge Road.
So this is part of the 2019 street improvement project initiated because of the condition of that Lower Ridge Road section. And due to its pending consideration as a detour for Locust Road next summer, this lower section is proposed to be reconstructed, rebuilt. There's a technical diagram in your packet. Bids were received on Friday, October 4th at 11 a.m. There were 2 bids received, JB Holland Construction, Skyline Construction, on the engineer's opinion of cost of $174,186. The apparent low bid is Skyline Construction, $157,964.69. The engineers have reviewed the bids and do make that as a recommendation to the council.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anybody who wishes to speak to this item, please step up to the podium. Seeing none, I'll close the public meeting. And it will be consider Resolution 3009, approving plans, specs, cost estimates, form of contract, and award of the bid for the 2019 Ridge Road Improvement Phase 1, Lower Ridge Road.
As I think it's a prudent step to take, I would move Resolution 3009.
Second.
By lower, we're just going to Meadow Court. Is that right, College to Meadow?
Right.
Okay, all right.
I think so. I'd have to look at the exact spec sheet here.
Yeah,
I'm not on this, well, go
Kind of the highlighted.
The lower
right
one
here,
is.
but it doesn't
Yes,
blow
to
up
Meadow.
nice.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Andy.
I was just gonna say, I haven't been super involved in street committee meetings, but, how are we handling change orders currently? Have there been a lot lately on any street projects or anything involving?
Typically,
department.
change orders come back to council, they end
Sure.
up in the consent agenda. There have been times over the years, I don't know that we've done this lately, where the council has authorized staff or the city manager to
Sure.
approve change orders to a certain threshold or in the aggregate between council meetings or
Okay.
something like that, so.
It's just maybe
We haven't seen any for a while.
I was gonna say, I don't remember
on
seeing
street
any for a while, but
projects.
maybe that's something we should talk about before we have next year for all the construction that we're gonna have.
And then also note, every time there is a change order, so we have an idea going
Right.
forward,
Right,
how many change orders we've had to work with,
right.
considering with the bid.
Well, so that is part of the record, we do keep track of those, I mean, we can provide that. I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
Okay, roll call?
Luce?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson? Neal?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Chisholm?
Aye.
Would the council like to consider authorizing staff or city manager to approve change orders to a certain level? Or, I think in the past, it's been like $5,000 per change order to an aggregate of 25 before they have to come back.
Then do you bring that to the next city council meeting and state that you accepted that change order? So
Yep,
we-
or we exceeded the, or we're going to exceed the aggregate or something like that. Again, I can't remember the last time we did that. Maybe it was the Highway 9 Water and Sewer Project. I don't know. I don't remember.
Unless there's a time savings, I like the exposure
Yeah. okay.
and the public exposure to change orders.
Usually, they're not that
Agree.
time sensitive.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my one question is, am I authorized that I'm supposed to read all these numbers that go with this? Or can I conduct public hearing on zoning code amendments for Chapter 17 and the various sections that are included in Chapter 17? Or would you like me to read them all?
I think if you just note that it's Chapter 17 related
Okay.
to solar energy systems, that's sufficient.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Okay, and do you have any other comments on, prior to the opening the public hearing, Chad?
Not prior to, no.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing, and if there's anyone to speak to this item, please come forward. Once again, seeing none, I close the public hearing. And so we'll go to consider ordinance 1237, approving the zoning code amendments that are included in chapter 17.
I would move ordinance 1237.
Second.
Discussion?
I'll just go on record saying that I think that supporting anything that can increase the amount of locally produced power in Decorah is a solid choice. And and knowing that solar is a good way to do that is encouraging, and I'm glad we're doing this.
And I'd call attention to the fact that we supported the application for the grant to Soul Smart on behalf of Winneshiek Energy District, and I appreciate seeing the benefits of that same grant coming back to improve our own city ordinances.
Okay, hearing no further questions or discussion, roll call.
Luce?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Resolution 3010, approving a temporary easement for construction agreement for stormwater improvements with Jeremy S. Brill and April A. Brill for 1313 Skyline Drive, and with Jared A. Nielsen and Jolene D. Nielsen for 1311 Skyline Drive.
This temporary easement is for construction of a stormwater system that flows from the street intake between these two parcels, and then if you look in the map in the background notes, you can kind of see a cleared out area. It discharges down through there, down to Division Street. The temporary construction easement is to necessitate actually getting in, digging up the trench, moving the pipe around in an area larger than contemplated by the permanent easement, which would be the next resolution, once the construction is done, stating that permanent easement situation. So resolution 3010 is for the temporary construction easement for both of these combined into one easement agreement.
I'll make a motion to move forward resolution 3010.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Hadley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution 3011, approving a separate permanent easement agreement for stormwater sewer improvements with Jeremy S. Brill and April A. Brill for 1313 Skyline Drive, and with Jared A. Nielsen and Jolene D. Nielsen for 1311 Skyline Drive.
And there's a plat of the easements in your Dropbox, but these are separate documents into the one resolution, providing the plat of survey for the final easement area, noting that public stormwater piping through their lawn in resolution 3011.
I'd make a motion to consider resolution 3011.
Do you want to pass it or just?
I just want to pass it, yeah.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Hadley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Very good. You can't even tell him good luck or anything, he's not here. Okay, appointment to boards and commission. I'm recommending Human Rights Commission, Laura Wright, who can I do both of these together, or you have to do them separate?
We've done them separate in the past.
Okay. For the Human Rights Commission,
I'd move to appoint Laura Wright to the Human Rights Commission.
Second.
any discussion?
I'm sorry, who seconded that? Yeah.
Roll call.
Bergen,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Thank you. Telecommunication Board of Trustees, Peter Sharp,
I'll make a
new
motion.
appointment.
I'll make a motion to approve Peter Sharp for the Telecommunications Board of Trustees.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Carlson.
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Bergen,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you for staying.
Thank you, Peter.
Yay!
Yay!
Good job, welcome.
Now you can tell your wife that I thought you were a Luther student.
Thank you for serving.
For a long time.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is, and I think I can pass one of these out if you'd like to look at it, and then just, is a sign for voluntary no idling education and signage. In case you haven't noticed, I am an asthma sufferer, and at this time of the year, you can hear me more than others. And I know we have talked about putting signs up or giving information to the public. And so I have worked with Nick from the library, who was very helpful in creating the sign, but I'd like to get your feedback as to how we could perhaps start putting signs up, how you want to progress with such a sign. I would see doing information for the community, but the real education being in the sustainability group, whatever. I know you have several committees or groups that work with it, but what I'm looking for is just input from the city council and your feelings about working with the sign, or how we could inform people about idling in a public, discriminatory.
Education versus an
Is it-
ordinance.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We did talk about actually at our sustainability meeting a little
Good.
bit, but does it have to say voluntary? Can it just say no idling?
I think actually, I'm just recommending, we can adjust the sign.
Okay.
Anyway. The other thing too is, I know you made a comment about something you could put on the bottom, promoted by the Sustainability Committee, or, what
Right.
did you say?
Supported by or endorsed by whatever group is putting it forward, right?
So I want a personalized ticket book that says Johanna caught you idling that I can stick on everybody's car, because I'm personally willing to be confrontational on this issue. But in general, fully supportive, Mayor, in any way that we can call attention to the fact that idling is not necessary. It does not actually cost more energy to turn your car off and turn it back on. Does not heat effectively while your car is not driving. It doesn't help the people around you. So unless there's a human or an animal in that car that needs temperature control, we can all turn our cars off. I'm really excited about this sign, and I also want to call attention to the Idle Box, which is developed as a federal government program, and it has a toolkit for idling reduction, education, and outreach. Stickers, bumper stickers,
Yep, they do.
decals, lots of different size posters. The challenge and why this wasn't something that worked well when we talked about it a year ago is that we need a printing budget to print these things. But I've been thinking since seeing today's agenda item about the public access TV station and all of the screens. The co-op has a screen when you shop, Fairway has a screen when you shop. There are all these digital screens that we could promote some of these messages on. And that coupled with some media letters to the editor saying we as a city, I think even beyond the Sustainability Committee, if we, as council members, would be willing to say, hey, turn your car off, you'll save a little money, we'll all be happier with the air we breathe.
Can we say drift less, turn your car off?
Well, I think too, from my point of view, is just to get something out.
Yeah.
But I also know that the sustainability could come back, you know, if we get it in front of the public with something like this, then the Sustainability Committee can work towards the education piece or see how they want to put more teeth
So-
into it. Or-
Yeah, I mean, I would say, so right now, the current task of the Sustainability Committee, right, is to write a sustainability plan. As such, we're a temporary committee with no funding. We want to change that. I think that's a fair assessment of what's happening on the Sustainability Committee. And I also think, I mean, I think, so right now, maybe the update is that Air and Water has submitted sort of what their task group, what they heard from the community, what they heard from city officials, what they would recommend. And this doesn't go anywhere against what they're recommending. I think they want to see an ordinance, right? I think they want to actually, at this point, it's written that they'd like to see the ordinance passed. But seeing where we get by choice is always a good way to go, right? Where can we voluntarily get, and then where do we need to have enforcement? And I think a really good advertisement can go a long way. I think about anti-littering campaigns that are done without fines. They're done with a really clear message. Like "Don't mess with Texas" is an anti-littering slogan, right? So what is our anti-idling slogan? And then I would suggest, right, breathe deep. Since the Sustainability Committee right now has no teeth, I would say it should be from the city of Decorah if we're wanting to implement this sooner than later. Otherwise, I would say let's support and fund the Sustainability Committee. Let's make it an ongoing thing. And then let's communicate.
Education and outreach is.
Yeah,
Communicate the heck out of
Education
it,
and
yeah.
outreach is always a positive thing.
And I do think that one of the things the Sustainability Committee is also working on is how do we develop communications plans that include education? Because each task group feels like a lot of what we want to do is about nudging people to make greener choices, and that is all education, for which this would fall under. So that would be my
Well, I
take.
think too that Nick made the sign and, you know, it can be distributed anywhere. Perhaps, you know, you wouldn't be having metal signs made yet till you know where to go, but you could use all of the social media. You could put flyers out, you know, you could do it with, you know, not as expensive of layout as far as getting the regular posted
Yeah.
signs and stuff.
I mean, Mayor, I think it could be really exciting for you to challenge the committee for idling ambassadors, right? And so for people on their own social media to be willing to share a post of yours saying that this is important. I mean, I do think that there's some, like, just, it's hard for us to only talk about idling when we're looking at an ordinance that people have opinions about, right? So if we can have a conversation about it over the next few months, I think then we get to a place where we're ready to support a goal or something specific that comes from the Sustainability Task Force.
But knowing that it affects you personally is meaningful. I mean, it does put a personal spin on it.
Well, when you hear somebody coughing along, as you're working with it, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of children that have it, and, yeah, it's frustrating to get, you know, sometimes get clear distinction when you're trying to clear your lungs at the same time, so. So would you agree to using the sign that we have for just putting out general social media? You want any changes in that prior to putting it out?
I totally am. I'm just trying to figure out social media in terms of our own personal social media, city social media.
Well, I'm thinking about what you were saying, you know, about the local access channel.
Oh, sure.
It could be put up on the bulletin board, you know, in different places.
We do have within the Sustainability Committee, we do have a communications and outreach section. Why don't we take it and we can kind of use your initial message as
Okay.
kind of the test for it and start getting it out there. As long as the council's in agreement on the message itself, we can start using this as just our initial test and coming back to the council saying, this was here, it was here, it was here, it was here.
Okay.
Was it successful?
And what committee did you say that was?
It's sustainability, but it's that
No, that I can know.
there's a task force within it that's education and outreach.
Okay.
Because so much of this is going to be education and outreach, and this is a great way to prime the pump.
Okay.
Does the city have, I mean, I know we have a Facebook page. Do we do Instagram and Twitter?
And a lot of the departments have their own pages too.
So would you see that committee, the education and outreach, taking it and working with it?
Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody else?
Well, it does, except that they were just a task group assigned for a small period of time.
Well,
They sort of completed their task.
Do we want to like
Did they
reinstitute them, or
complete
do we,
their task?
that's all I'm wondering. What, did they what?
Did they complete their task?
Yes, I mean, we asked task groups to assemble over the last 2 months, essentially within 4 to 8 meetings, right, to make recommendations to the Sustainability Committee on what we should put in the plan, right? So, but then within the plan is an ask for an ongoing committee. So I don't think we technically have a group, but we certainly within the Sustainability Committee can use our networks and create something that we could start blasting on social media. It worked well when we had meetings, right? When we blasted on social media, having the Build a Better Decorah meetings, right? So it wouldn't be odd to use that same platform to start testing what's it look like to blast with idling. We don't.
I do wonder about sending, I mean, I hear you about sending another job to a sort of a task force that's sort of done their piece. I mean, I wonder if we want to keep it somewhere closer to home and then invite those people to that one-off meeting. Right. I don't know who's on the committee and how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
Well,
probably what would be.
The point is to get the information.
I think you're asking, can the Sustainability Committee help get the information out?
Yeah.
I think the short answer is yes, we will
Okay.
find a way to help get the information out. And I think it's great. And so I think as we consider what we're going to do with the plan, having an official Sustainability Commission, moving it from just, because right now that's a temporary group, and what all the things that we want that group to do would be great
Yeah.
to start doing that.
Other council, we've heard from like 3 or 4 of the councils. Anybody else have any comments or? Andy, Randy,
Seems fine.
Kirk?
Mayor, are you okay if I send this idle box around to folks and ask
Yep.
to be to be shared with the
Yeah,
sustainability
that'd be
group
great.
as well? I think someone keyed into the idea of voluntary, and I think that's maybe a word I'd like to just
We would
remove
too.
as well. I think the idle box has a couple of different messages. One of them is about saving money. And while I want the argument to be about breathing easy, I think saving money is what people will make changes in their behaviors about. So a combo approach or a couple of messages out there I think would be good.
I think the one thing that I look at with the voluntary, just to begin with, eases into the no.
Yeah, but you're not.
What if we're idling
Still
free?
your choice. There's
What?
no- oh,
We're
sorry,
like
go ahead.
idling free,
Pardon?
like an idling free zone.
Okay. You can just-
Instead of no idling,
There you
right?
go.
Yes.
That would be better. Instead of having I agree. I've got to.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds good. I'm going to put it in your hands, and who's ever just going to pick that up?
Yeah, the Sustainability Committee will pick
Okay.
it up and
That sounds good.
bring it back to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that consideration. And I have the file, but you can also get it from Nick at the library.
Sure. I have a question regarding this. So we can do a lot of social media, but the place you really want it is where people are in their cars. Can we create signs? I mean, I don't know how it means, what does it mean for us to put up signs as a city council?
Well, are you talking about like the directional signs?
I don't know, like, the help wanted, or not help wanted, but like lost dog signs. I don't know, like, if we want to start putting signs up, no, they're not going to be metal, but it's
Well,
great to put this on social media, but when do people need the reminder?
Well, you
It's-
could have it, printed on a more sturdy background and then start putting them out that way.
Okay,
I mean, that's what I would see,
yeah,
having them in different spots.
okay.
But maybe you're getting at how you put them on street posts.
Can we put them on
and
city property if they're
That's
from
going
the
to take
city?
deliberate council action to do that.
Okay,
Okay.
but I would.
Because
I
it's
would-
signage, and that
That's what I was
should,
asking.
yes.
Yes, that's very much what I was
If
asking.
you're going to print them on cardstock and put them on bulletin boards or in store windows or whatever,
But if I was going to turn all the Kneel for Decorah signs into no idling. Sorry.
yeah, go.
I think I was thinking about what he was saying.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Okay.
Okay.
I was just wondering, like, So we would need to have an action if we want signs actually put downtown or in places where people idle.
Yeah, but I also just like to that extent, like, I mean, there are, so the Montessori school was in open conversations with us about having a no idling sign on the back of their drop-off spot, right? Where do cars stop in front of the coffee shops? Like, and so I think that some of that is almost partnership with the locale, and would they be willing to post a sign that we already have created if it fits their mission and purpose?
Sounds
We'll
good.
just take the first step, and then we can come
Thank
back
you.
with signs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate that. It's fantastic. Okay, department heads, city manager.
Just a couple of things here from my desk. A change in the first Locust Road community input meeting date. Just working with the engineers and some others involved. October 21st will be that first one. That's your next council meeting. There will be one in the afternoon for that smaller group up at Vinium. That'll be a closed, smaller group for those folks in that facility.
Well, what time was that again?
October 21st at 2 o'clock. And then 4 o'clock would be a public one here ahead of the city council meeting. Wanted to let the council know that over the last couple of weeks since we last met, I did attend the Iowa League of Cities Conference. Attended several sessions, a couple on housing, and some different ideas in terms of affordable housing or just generating housing growth in general. I also attended a class on nitrate reduction strategies and wastewater discharge. Ooh. And then Wanda and I actually taught a class on Friday morning on community spirit. And I don't know if you saw the results. We scored very high, very well in our responses and ratings. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for all of you that voted for us. Right?
All the ones that went? Yeah, how
Yeah.
many voted? You did
Chad,
very
what were
well.
some of the innovative housing things you learned about?
Well, there's, a lot of things. Eagle Grove, one of the presentations was by Eagle Grove. They had a lot of interesting things going
Very
on.
much
They
so.
probably had 5 or 6 different projects. Public-private partnerships, working with some employers in the area. We have a multifamily project that we approved as a city a year or so ago. There was a project like that that had some corporate employers behind it. So just different ways to come at some of maybe the same things, right? Just looking at them different ways. So it's interesting to hear just how people tackle kind of the same problem. The abatement program, but with a different twist. We offer the 5-year 100%. They did things differently. They had a smaller down payment assistance type program, which we talked about here. They implemented in a different way. So again, same problems, different ways to approach it. It works for them, might not work for us. What works for us doesn't, that kind of thing. So. Andy is not here, Nimrod from Parks and Rec, but he did want me to extend a much appreciated thank you to all the departments that participated in Touch a Truck. He said without all of the departments and even some of the businesses and that were involved, the program wouldn't be the success that it is. And even despite the weather, while attendance was probably down half from last year, it was still fairly well attended. And so he just wanted me to extend that. I have something else here too that we've been talking about at the staff level, and I think some of you have been receiving phone calls on, and that is noise, especially in regards to roosters. We seem to be having some problems with roosters in our community right now, as John and Wanda can attest as well. And so I think staff is going to come forward with a recommendation to modify our ordinances and just ban roosters in our community altogether. They're creating a noise problem is what they're creating. And so unless there's any major dissent from council, we'll draft that up and we'll bring that to you at a future council meeting. So you'll see that in the future. From the street department, Jeremy's also out tonight. He had a couple of update items. Broadway Street alley projects, about half done. Asphalt paving scheduled for the week of 10/14, so next Monday. 2019 street improvements, North Street removals and grading are underway. Curb and gutter construction will also start next week with the first layer of asphalt to be installed during the week of 10/14. Commerce Drive patch repair work is underway. I think that started today, actually. College Drive concrete patchwork to start early next week. Street will be closed during the day on the week of October 21st through the 25th for mill and overlay. And again, I think their intent is from about 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock to have that street closed off. Oneota Drive Bridge, the old bridge is gone. If you haven't been out there to see that. The abutments for the south half of the bridge are poured, and the beams for the south half will be poured this week, actually. And leaf pickup will begin next week and run through mid-November.
Okay. Dave?
We are going to start testing and evaluating a vest carrier. A lot of officers have lower back issues and back problems caused by all the weight that we carry around our waist with our duty belts. They're also uncomfortable and you sit, there's pouches in the back that push into your lower back. We spend a lot of time in a seated position in the patrol car or in the office. There's been medical studies done on the benefits of wearing the weight up higher in your vest. So we're going to try one of those. If you see a police officer wearing one, it's not any more equipment than we normally wear. It's just taking it all off our waist and put it up high. There's a national trend of that. If you've seen police officers on the news, you've probably seen that they have most of their gear up high. We have an officer that is going through some back issues right now, and she can't wait to try the new vest on. We've had a deputy sheriff that's far too young to have back surgery, went through back surgery, not because of the load bearing that we wear in the hips, but it doesn't do anybody any favors. We had one officer try it on one night. He's a pretty quiet guy, hard-working guy, doesn't say much, but his comment was, please don't make me put that duty belt back on. So it's an immediate effect.
Didn't you say they weigh about 25 pounds?
With all the weight that we have around the waist, it's probably about 25 pounds.
That's a
And
lot.
again, when you're sitting, it's all pushing in you. Also wanted to update you on the hiring process. We had 6 interviews set up, 4 certified, 2 non-certified. One of the people took a job with another city on the day before we were interviewing, so we lost one already. After the interviews, we narrowed down our background checks. That's our next stage right now. We are background checked 4 people, 3 certified, 1 non-certified. And we gave them about 10 days to get their background packets back to us. And after we get them, then we'll begin the background investigation.
Okay, good. Chopper?
Couple things. I'm finishing up the fiber extension over to the airport. The main airport hangar is live. The lounge is live with the connection, and the Gunderson facility is live up there. So I got one more facility to penetrate up there. That'll be done here later this week. And I met with the school district today. We're going to get our disaster recovery stuff set up by the 911 bunker for the John Deere Hill. Probably later this week or early next week as well. So that'll be good to get that wrapped up and do that as well. So.
Bunker?
Well, I don't know what you call it, little building up by the John Deere tower.
It's on the top of the hill instead of in the valley, right? Okay. Wanda?
I'm continuing work on putting that complete count committee together for the census.
Oh, yes.
Still awaiting confirmation on a couple members, who's going to participate. And hopefully, maybe by next week, we will have our first meeting next week, the week after.
Great. And that starts, you said, April?
Census day is April 1st.
Okay. Very good. Kristen?
Work has been completed on the stucco, sort of look east exterior of the building, and we are now awaiting roofing materials. We hope that maybe they would have been here at the end of last week, but with the rain, things were delayed a little bit. So we're anticipating crews getting to work on replacing our flat membrane roof at the end of the week. And then our railings for our new ramp area should be arriving in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be moving forward with replacing the door there with something a little bit more weatherproof and secure. So things are moving forward and basically on schedule. We're also looking forward to doing our second finalist interview for our children's can be free for even a few minutes between about 9:30 and 10:15 tomorrow. We're doing a public meet and greet on the main floor of the library. We've had really good feedback about offering that opportunity, so we're looking to incorporate that in future job searches as well. I think that sums things up at the library.
I appreciate the process and the update that you've given us as you've gone along. That's a long process, but I appreciate your work and the board's work in that endeavor. Todd?
Just a quick reminder, we're in the middle of our maintenance for our hydrants and flushing program. We have about 2 weeks in, we probably got 2 or 3 weeks left, so we're moving along pretty good.
Good. Okay, Randy?
Well, I also attended the league meeting, and probably the best workshop that I went to was comprehensive planning one, and that's something that we looked at, 3 years ago, maybe 2016. Kind of sat down and got it all going, and then kind of went by the wayside. So it's something that I believe from a budgeting standpoint and project standpoint we need to get back on track with. And I will applaud Chad and Wanda for getting up and doing their spiel. I mean, it was fun to watch. It was very interactive with the folks that were there.
That's it. Emily?
I think I gave a little bit of the sustainability update, so I won't repeat that.
Okay,
But yeah,
sounds good.
Nothing this time, Mayor.
I also was in Dubuque last week and attended. One of the most interesting sessions I attended was about Muscatine and the efforts they used on their Mississippi Drive project to create a friendlier space. They have some 80 trains a day going down along Mississippi Drive, and they were talking about if you wanted to go outside and eat and have a conversation, just the amount of noise from the trains blowing their horns all the way through that section. So they did some serious negotiations with Canadian Pacific Railroad, and everything from lifting the railroad tracks 3 feet so that it would be out of the floodway to creating a quiet space. So no longer are any train whistles happening in that whole space, which allows the different establishments that have outdoor dining and drinking a much better situation. I found the most interesting aspect is that they actually introduced a new concept of angled back-end parking. And what was particularly interesting was they used a method of everybody voting during the discussion. They introduced it and educated people with it, and then had a tally how people felt about it. Do you think try something like this? Do you think no, where we're for that, or I need more information? And it was amazing. One of the county supervisors who was adamantly against back-end angle parking, it would never happen in Muscatine. The feedback came, 81% would consider it, another 9% would like more information, and some, whatever the difference is, 12% said it'll never happen here. So the people's response to being educated and that immediate feedback really helped sell the idea. And of course the supervisor said, well, we'll never have anybody parking there. And the engineers said that whenever they're in Muscatine, they take pictures of that street, and there's always full of back-in angle parking.
Interesting.
The parallel parking space takes about 22 feet. An angled parking space takes about 11. So there was about a 35% increase in parking spaces from their parallel into the angled. The other news is that the Iowa Utility Board hearings are going on this week, and we have the Decorah area group represented quite well by several persons who have given testimony and are giving. You should see in the paper and reading online that the Decorah Area Group rejected being part of a settlement that was being offered, particularly because it was still 62% of what the increase that Alliant asked. And the feeling of the Decorah Area Group was that that still puts too much burden on fixed income and lower income people, businesses, and community to have to cover that much more expense. Thank you, Mayor.
I think also on that, the Decorah Area Group recognized contributions by over 52 cities who were making the same comments but didn't have representation, and felt like they could essentially, their arguments would help represent other cities and the pressures that they would feel by this.
That's the number of different communities who accepted our resolution that we passed as what they would like to portray too.
Okay, thank you. Johanna?
I also attended the Iowa League of Cities Conference in Dubuque, and probably the most important part of a session that I attended was being reminded of the importance of capital improvement plans. So voiced with other council members the importance of focusing on those plans in the near future. Probably the most applicable session was a biking tour of Dubuque's B Branch water restoration area. You can think about it as Dubuque's dry run, just bigger. And there, it was quite impressive to see the amount of beautification and restoration that they've been able to do while managing intense stormwater issues. And they're already seeing, the project is not complete, but what's been completed so far changes their experience of floodwater on a weekly basis. In fact, part of our tour was seeing the cleanup of the water from just a couple of days before, and they showed us the difference of how high that water would have been without these areas of improvement. So that was a pretty intensive project for the community to take on, but I think there's pieces of it that could benefit our thinking about Dry Run Creek here in Decorah. They did an intensive stakeholder process, and their final designs were created and approved by a citizen committee. And that committee did things like included beautification. So there is parkway along this creek. They didn't need to do that. That was more expensive. The community said that they wanted it, and it's now being used frequently. And the community also was part of the alignment visioning and was very responsive to developing a plan that worked with the way people walk and live along the creek versus this is the shortest line to get from here to there. And overall, I think the community is much happier with the project because of that. But the most fun session was a tour of Dubuque's wastewater treatment plant. The tour was great, but what was awesome was that it took us 45 minutes to create a visual flow chart of how the treatment plant actually works. And it's amazing, and I have pictures. And it's my dream to be able to describe articulately everything that happens at all of those stages. And I'm really bummed that Mike was not here to hear me say that.
He'd be happy to hear what you found out.
And congratulations to you for winning.
Yes.
Oh, I completed the process to become a certified elected municipal official, which you all can do too, because all of us go to a lot of league events, and it is largely about logging the hours and showing that you've actually attended 50 points worth of content.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Ross?
Well, describing things was, I also went to the Iowa League of Municipal Cities training or sessions, and mine, my favorite thing was actually a takeaway. And people ask, what's going on in the city? What's going on with the city council? Well, Bettendorf created a one-page document where they show their vision for the year, their goals for the year, their mission statement, their core beliefs, their policy agenda with top priority and high priority, their management agenda with top priority and high priority, their management in progress for the year, just a recap of activities, and then major projects that they're having. So when somebody from just your constituents want to know what's going on, you can either put it online or you can give them a sheet of paper and say, this is what we're working on this year, because it's very difficult to remember and recap everything that's going on. and to have something that staff can look back and council can agree on and everything. And it's color-coded, so you can show exactly where you are within the process. And when then it moves to red, it's funded.
Oh,
So you know, you actually know where it is. But Bettendorf has been doing some really great stuff, and I really appreciate that. And then this weekend was Luther Homecoming, go Norse. It was a really great time, and I really appreciate, both as an alumni, a city member, and as a business owner, appreciate the impact that Luther has in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt?
I also went to the League of Cities. I went to a couple of interesting workshops. The first was one called Input to Action, and that the lecturer talked a little bit about social media and surveys and what to use to reach out to different demographics and what to use to inform people and to engage more people and to get them involved in projects so you can move things forward. That was a very good session. I also sat through one on TIF and urban renewal basics. I've been to that one before, but I just felt like I wanted to take a refresher, and I just find the whole concept of TIF to be rather useful and kind of fascinating. The best workshop I attended, though, was building a more flood resilient Iowa with Larry Weber from the Iowa Flood Center. And I mean, I think if there's one person in the state that's sounding the alarm on the kind of pollution that is entering our water and our air, he is the guy. And I just think it's a very stark realization that we need to start pushing back, and Iowans in particular need to start pushing back a little bit on the kinds of things that are going on in our communities and around our communities in the entire state.
Thanks. Well, guess what? I went also. And I'll only mention just a couple points. The one I went to, leading a public meeting, and it was helpful to remember that city council meetings are not a public meeting, but they're a meeting held in public, and work sessions for the council to be able to do their work. I thought that was good, and they actually talked too about having guidelines for the people who want to present during the public time. If you put a time limit on it, I don't think we have anything like that. But then also we could have an information sheet for guidelines for what's appropriate at city council meeting, what's not. And I think too, another meeting I went to was by Cassandra Howells, and she said one of her things that I took away too was to lead with confidence, to listen, to learn, and to lead. And she had some other great things as well. I also wanted to note, went to the debate last Thursday night, I think it was, which was held up at Luther. And I just want to remind the public that the local election at this time is for their city wards and at large, and that it's nonpartisan. And just to remember that fact, that when just as any other city council here knows, that they represent their constituents no matter what their background is and no matter what their political stance is. I read today that it's Fire Prevention Week, October 6th through the 12th. And I participated in a very rainy homecoming parade. And I've got to give that, the Luther students have a lot of energy and pep. So it was fun, I enjoyed it. And the person that was driving me was extremely grateful that she was in the car with me, not walking. So I think that's all that we have. I want to remind the city, if we can group real quick, we can get a picture after the meeting, then you can see what kind of questions they might have. Movement for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you very